the .org, O-R-G. Org stands for 3 different sessions we're going to be having here today. The first are operating sessions, which are going to happen right now, the first panel. Afterwards, we're going to have radiate sessions, radiate, how to give off, how to message, marketing. And the third is going to be generate sessions, ending today with a spark tank, giving out many thousands of dollars to amazing causes. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome up on stage the next panel, which is entitled Operate on a Higher Level. I'd like to welcome Elizabeth Abel, which is the Senior Vice President of CCS Fundraising, who is going to be facilitating this conversation. I'd like to welcome my dear friend Richard Bieler, the founder of R. Bieler Consulting, LLC, up on stage. Alan Sector, Senior Director of Institutional Advancement of the YU, Yeshiva University. And last but certainly not least, Atara Solow, Executive Director of American Friends of Meadowlands. Welcome up on stage. Thank you all.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. It is such a pleasure to be here. My name is Elizabeth Abel, and I am a Senior Vice President at CCS Fundraising. We are a global fundraising consulting firm. We work exclusively with nonprofit organizations, development teams, and board members to plan and implement multi-million to billion-dollar fundraising campaigns. Personally, my intersection of Jewish philanthropy and nonprofit fundraising is what drives my work in philanthropy, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here today with such esteemed colleagues. Richard Bieler, President of Richard Bieler Consulting, Atara Solow, Executive Director of the American Friends of Meadowlands, and Alan Sector, Senior Director of Institutional Advancement at Yeshiva University. So thank you for joining us on our panel called Operate, How to Maximize Your Donor Community. I'd like to start by inviting each of our panelists to share a little bit more about yourselves and the work that you do each day. Why don't we start with you, Alan?
Good morning. I'm Alan Sector, Senior Director of Institutional Advancement for Yeshiva University. Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for facilitating this. And it's really an honor to be here with these esteemed co-panelists, and my thanks go to Chaya Abelsky and our friends at Charity for inviting us here to be here today. I grew up in Winnipeg, Canada, and I went to St. John's Ravenscourt High School. We wore green blazers and school ties. Yeshiva University was really not on the radar screen for anybody at St. John's Ravenscourt with 4 Jews in the grade. Somehow I ended up in Yeshiva and then subsequently working for YU later in life. I like to say I'm a YU by choice family. We became Yeshiva University parents at the first opportunity and have 2 kids now at YU high schools. I've worked at YU now for the last 2.5 years and worked there previously for 6 years with a gap in between. It's really a privilege to work at an organization which we call the flagship Jewish university. There's nowhere else other than Yeshiva University that an Orthodox Jewish person in America can have a wholesome college experience in a Torah values-based environment. And that, to me, I think is one of YU's unique value propositions. It was Yom HaAtzmaut recently, and we like to say at YU that we fly the Israeli flag 365 days a year. I realized this year that we also fly the American flag 365 days a year. And so much of what's been happening in this country the last several months is not only anti-Israel and anti-Semitic, but also anti-American. And I believe that the story of Yeshiva University is the story of Orthodox Judaism in America over the last 100 plus years. It's really a privilege to work for such an esteemed organization.
Thanks so much, Alan. Atara, I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And thank you again to my fellow panelists and, of course, to the Charity team. Really, it's incredible to see what you've built already in this first round of this .org Expo. So really, thank you all for being here. My name is Atara Solow. I am the Executive Director of American Friends of Migdal Or. Migdal Or is based in Israel, founded by an esteemed individual by the name of Rabbi Yitzchak David Grossman, otherwise known as the Disco Rabbi, the living legend, and is an Israel Prize laureate who built a network of social welfare support for Israel's most underprivileged youth. We help each year throughout Israel, we help over 10,000 orphaned and underprivileged at-risk youth, starting from birth pretty much, all through their years in school and as they form their own families and contribute to society. Our goal is to build strong individuals who seek to be involved with Am Yisrael and throughout Israel and throughout the world. So what we provide them are the essentials, giving them a home, medical, love, care, support, the education that they need that is tailored to their personal experiences, and the tools to lead them on the path for empowerment so that they can succeed on their own and are not receiving a handout, but rather a hand up. And these children are growing up to be leaders in Israeli society and across the world, contributing to Am Yisrael and to others around the world and leading by example. It's a privilege to be here. I myself am an American-born individual, but I made Aliyah when I was a teenager and grew up in Israel. And seeing this issue firsthand really moved me. Throughout my life, I've been involved in nonprofit. I've been driven by connection to people, to individuals, and to understand what drives them, and to try to create connection and meaning between the Jews in Israel and Jews around the world. And that has been my professional path, and being here today and seeing so many like individuals who are seeking to change the world by giving their little piece. And before we just saw from the Rebbe, that was amazing, to really encourage yourself to push beyond your limits is really, truly inspiring. So it's a privilege to be here today, and thank you all again.
Thank you so much. It's so great to hear such enthusiasm and pride for our commitment to the Jewish community, to Israel, to democracy. Richard, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thanks also to the charity team. At this point in my career, where I'm serving as a consultant, but let me go back a number of years, because fundraising was not the original plan, but it was a Kadosh Baruch Hu's plan, I believe, at this point. So I served 2 tenures at YU, one as a very junior fundraiser, the fundraiser outside the room, trying to be nice to the late arriving important donors to the event. And then a second term later in my career as a very senior member of the YU team, traveling around the country, representing the president, and doing all kinds of cool stuff like that. In between was an equally long tenure at OHEL in Brooklyn. And even though you may think that one organization is large and international, and I'm an alumnus of 4 schools of YU, but at the same time, never discount the importance of the smaller organization like OHEL and the value of that work and the kind of leadership that it attracts. It's a whole different kind of thing, as important for the Jewish community. And therefore, my consulting practice, I can bring to the table experience in the Washington Heights kind of setting and the Madison Avenue kind of setting, but also the Borough Park setting. And that's what I try to do now, especially with organizations that have reached a certain point in their lifespan and are deciding to change, turn around, reorganize their board. And that's how I try to spend my day at this time.
Wonderful, thank you. So before we jump into strategies and tactics to maximize your donors and community, I think it's really important to understand the philanthropic landscape in which we are operating, because as we know, philanthropy is an ever-evolving field, and that much more so since October 7th. So I'd really appreciate the opportunity, and we'll start with Atara and Alan, to hear from you in particular. How has the evolution of the philanthropic landscape, the fall, the end of year, the first half of this year, what has been the impact on your fundraising programs? What have you learned, and what are you thinking about as you plan for the summer and fall months ahead?
Okay. Well, it's actually an auspicious time for all of us. Definitely since October 7th, it's forced us all to think differently, to approach things in a more creative way, and to respond to immediate needs in a way that we haven't before. The nonprofit world is an incredible one because, as I said before, it's driven by meaning and passion. And what we're seeing right now in the philanthropic world is exactly that, is that people are looking to build their Jewish identities, to strengthen Judaism, to strengthen Jewish people around the world, and to serve as a strong force as leaders going forward. And I think in the philanthropic space today, we're in the nonprofit space, we're responding to that philanthropic drive. People want to stay involved, and our job as nonprofits is to provide the opportunities for people to get involved where they feel they can be most impactful. And that's on us to discover. So that's a process we're going through and constantly looking at to see what more we can provide that relates to our personal mission. Of course, everybody has to be true to their cause, but always expanding horizons and trying to envision what that might look like going forward when needs have changed. And if we don't do that for ourselves in the nonprofit world, we'll be missing opportunities consistently. And today, I feel that post-October 7th, definitely Migdal Or, while I mentioned before we help orphan and underprivileged youth, once October 7th hit, we immediately sought out what we could do on October 8th, on October 9th. And what is the October 11th of next year? What does that look like? And we jumped in to help evacuees the first day of the war. We provided 2 huge hotels, and we're being contacted from mayors across Israel to see if we could absorb people because we responded so quickly. And I'd like to focus on that immediate response. Don't wait, respond. And if you're there for a person in their time of need, it will not be overlooked in any way. And so that, to me, has been a drive, and for our organization really has been. And we've, of course, continued to adapt, whether it's for our cause, further orphans that have unfortunately been added to this list, and to see how we can continue to provide for them in an ongoing way going forward, and to engage with our lay leadership and philanthropic world in a way that challenges them and provides them with a multitude of opportunities to be impactful.
Thank you. That's a lot to digest. Migdal Or has been amazing. I think it's so essential to have an organization with boots on the ground that are trusted partners like Migdal Or and others. That those of us here in the United States who are looking to allocate, a lot or a little, whatever it's stuck we have, can confidently give to organizations that have the infrastructure that are able to then deploy that infrastructure, in a slightly different way to meet the urgent needs that are there, really top to bottom in the country. I want to take a step back and just say, that the philanthropic landscape, exists within a context of an economic landscape. And I think that it's important as fundraisers that we have a little bit of humility to realize that we are witnessing, record-breaking stock market performance, and that philanthropic giving always is very highly correlated with what's going on in the markets, both how much money people have and also how people feel about what they have. And so, I think that we saw at YU some really significant fundraising totals in the couple years following COVID. The recession that I think we were all anticipating didn't materialize, and that's been, I think, to the benefit of all of our organizations. And so whatever success that we've had at YU, I think, happens in a broader context of the economic reality. That said, YU is a big organization, and as a big organization, it's very easy to find fault, with the 800-pound gorilla in the room. And I think that post-October 7th, what I've been witnessing is people willing to look past some of the foibles and imperfections of my organization and focus more on the big picture. I think that there's a really universal appreciation amongst the Orthodox community and even amongst the pro-Israel non-Orthodox community about the essential nature of Yeshiva University. That was on display a couple weeks ago at a commencement where we gave the presidential medallion to Senator John Fetterman. And he did something, I don't know if you saw that it went viral on social media, it was covered in the New York Post, that he literally could not have done at any other university commencement in the world, which is that, his last commencement, he said, was when he graduated from the Harvard Kennedy School 25 years ago. And those of you who are familiar with how, the pomp and circumstances of university commencements, you wear a hood. It's like a little scarf that's associated with the last degree that you have. So Senator Fetterman was wearing the crimson Harvard hood, and in the middle of his speech, he took it off. He said, it doesn't feel right to wear this today. And it was really a moment that symbolized what YU stands for, and really what so much of higher education in this country these days does not stand for and has failed at. And President Ari Berman, who has been such an outspoken advocate on behalf of truth, on behalf of morality, on behalf of Israel, on behalf of all the presidents of the universities that are willing to stand up for what is true and good, I think really encapsulates what's good and right and true about Yeshiva University. That has played very well for our fundraising. You know, Winston Churchill said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." So without being opportunistic, I think YU has done a really good job of using this opportunity to reach out to our partners and prospective partners to talk about what makes us unique and what our value added is. I saw in E-Jewish Philanthropy this morning a headline that David Magerman decided to take the $1 million that he had planned to give to the University of Pennsylvania and instead to give it to an Israeli university. There are big conversations happening at the 7- and 8-figure level with big philanthropists, and YU is really trying to put itself in I think successfully, put itself in the mix with some of those conversations. It takes some time, but I think we're going to see some good things as a result of this for Jewish education across the board.
Thank you both so much. I think what really resonates me, and you articulated it differently, but the same theme is how you meet the moment and make a case for philanthropic support that resonates with your funders, whether you are raising emergency or immediate funds to take action, or you're encouraging people to think bigger and bolder about your investments, about their investments in your organization like they never have before. And so as you're thinking about the work that you're doing and you're thinking about your donor audience, how you make the case and tell the story and communicate the philanthropic impact of your work is increasingly important. I'd like to hear from Richard in particular. We're going to talk a little bit about the role of board members and the role that board members can play in philanthropy, particularly serving as fundraising ambassadors. And what I think is really interesting about boards is that every single nonprofit has one, whether you are a small grassroots organization or a large institution like Yeshiva University. And there are so many ways in which we can engage board members in fundraising. So I'd like to start with Richard. I think you bring a really unique perspective, having been a frontline fundraiser and now thinking about your work as a strategist and consultant. What are some of the ways in which you've worked with board members to help them advance fundraising activity at an organization?
So thank you. I want to address first, you've heard about large organizations. Many of you represent smaller organizations, but what boards have in common is that they're your family. Whether your board is 30 multi-millionaires or your board are 15 local leaders, they are your family, which means that they're the ones that if you've taken care of your family properly and you've involved them throughout the time, they're the ones who will step up in times of crisis. They're your resource. They're the ones to turn to. There's so many organizations that are afraid of forming a board and they think, I'm going to give up control. Well, then you may be considering the wrong people for the board. The real board members don't want to micromanage you. The real board members want to take you on your vision and want to take you further. So if you don't have a board yet, this is a great time to do it because there are people who are looking to be heroes now. There are people who are saying, well, maybe I can't get involved in a large organization or even an organization that addresses needs in Israel right away, but I can get involved locally and see and make a difference. And there are also people, as Alan said, there are people who want to make statements like David Magerman, who are saying, I'm not just going to give quietly to a Jewish organization, but I'm going to take the money that I thought I was going to give somewhere else and make it known that I'm giving it to somewhere else, to another Jewish organization instead of another one. So there are people who want to make that difference. There are people who are looking to make a statement. There are people who are looking to make a statement about their Jewishness. I always say that Stucca is a great Kiruv opportunity because for someone who can't learn, you can teach someone so much about Jewish life by teaching them about Stucca. So those of you who are qualified to have a shir with your board about Stucca and the different motivations for giving charity and the different kinds of rewards, the whole statement that it's not just what you give, it's how do you look at the person, that you get more reward for looking with a kind eye at the person than the amount that you give. All these things are great opportunities to bring your board members closer and to teach them about the needs that are going on right now. And if you look at the history of the United States, you'll see that during the economic depression, there were many big synagogues. All those big synagogues in Brooklyn and Flatbush, they were built during the most difficult times you could imagine. And I will tell you, I was at YU during my second tenure when the famous, implosion happened. And I want you to know that there were a number of YU trustees who themselves lost money in the scandal, but stepped up to give more money to YU because they were part of the family. It's not a well-known fact, and we don't talk about the names, but when it came to getting YU through that big crisis that everybody knows about, the family came through. And that's why it's important for every organization to make sure that they have a board that feels like they're a family of your organization.
Thanks so much, Richard. I really appreciate your perspective. Alan, Atara, anything you would add to build on this theme of engaging board members as fundraising ambassadors?
So in my current role, I'm the Senior Director of YU for Long Island. I'm in charge of major gifts fundraising and community programming, mostly in the South Shore and the 5 towns. I don't currently work with a board. I've worked with boards in the past. My main role now, in terms of board development, is to recruit people for boards. And at YU, board membership comes along with a philanthropic commitment, so it's a great major gifts opportunity. We've definitely seen, we saw a dip in board activity and engagement during COVID. I'm sure everybody did. In the last year or so, we've really been trying to re-energize our boards, and part of that has been to add some new blood. And thank God, successfully. I've been able to add several new board members over the last year or so. I would add that at a big organization like YU, the boards are not the only stakeholders that you can leverage in terms of trying to engage people. And that I think that at a bigger organization, one's success also is a function of your ability to try to leverage the various resources at your disposal. So lay people is one, but board members are not the only one. Parents is a very key constituency. That those are stakeholders that are very actively engaged. So getting them to host things or introduce you to other people, as well as deans. I was definitely able to close new gifts this year as a result of leveraging relationships with senior administrators. I want to add a cautionary note, because at YU we do have board members, lay people, and academic administrators that are willing to go on visits and help make solicitations. Not every organization is like that. And I've been in situations, I stint at a couple other organizations in between my 2 tenures at YU, working in an organization with a very different culture, and expecting things of lay people that just weren't forthcoming, made for a lot of heartache and frustration. So it's important to take the temperature and to be realistic about what it is that you could expect of your lay people. We're fortunate at YU, but not every organization has that same culture.
So I want to touch upon something that Richard actually mentioned briefly, which was really recognizing post-October 7th the shining stars that exist in the community. I think we have an incredible opportunity in our hands to discover active lay leadership. October 7th forced us into that position, but out of it came a real gift. And if we don't harness that right now that we're down the road a little bit more, we really have to take the time to recognize who stood up, who's looking to possibly get more involved, and seek to engage them and onboard them to our board or bring them into advisory teams, et cetera. And I think that can really help the growth of every nonprofit, whether you have a board or not, and really see who's championing their personal cause and how to engage them and bring them into your cause so that they can drive giving, they can drive engagement, and they can further build community. So to me, that's incredible. I also think I'll touch on one more point with the board, is that given these times, there can be an experience of burnout. And I think that's on us as nonprofit organizations to continually develop our board. I can tell you that Migdal strategically, following a lot of the efforts that we've put out since October 7th and previous years, are looking to revitalize our board. We're looking to not only bring in new members, but to take those that were there and make sure that they don't experience any type of burnout. It's easy to overlook your members of your board. And Richard mentioned this before, that they're family. You need to make sure that they feel engaged and actively involved always, but to continue to enable them in a way that doesn't cause burnout and approaches that concept of burnout very actively. So that would be my addition on what was already shared.
Thank you all so much. I've been really energized by the insights and anecdotes and advice that you've shared. I think, we started talking about the philanthropic landscape and how we make the case for philanthropic support. We've moved on to talk about boards and the role of board members as serving as ambassadors of your organization. I love the language you used around driving. Board members are drivers, and what's really important is that we recognize, Alan, to your point, that some board members may enjoy facilitating peer-to-peer solicitations, others may never want to ask for a gift. And so for that second cohort, how can you engage them in fundraising in a way that's meaningful for them? Perhaps it's by stewardship. Can they call or email 5 or 10 donors a quarter? Can they host something for your organization? Or can they identify new potential funders in your network that have an affinity for the work that you're doing and the capacity to make a meaningful gift? So there's so many ways to engage board members as fundraising ambassadors, and what's important is that you find a way that works for them and that gets them even more excited to be involved. So I'd like to pivot to the heart of this conversation, really around the donor journey. Obviously, we need philanthropic investments from funders large and small to be successful. And I would welcome the opportunity to hear from panelists both about a donor success story and in the spirit of learning and sharing what we've learned from things that maybe did not work so well. What was either a missed opportunity that you've experienced over the last year, or perhaps something that didn't go as well as you had planned, but you learned something really important from it. So I think Alan would love to hear from you about a success story, and then Richard and Atara, something that maybe didn't go as well as planned, and what you can share with the cohort today.
I'll tell two quick stories. I have a donor who funds a program at YU called Project Start. And it's a program where we have the YU students, undergraduate students, young men and young women, teaching science workshops in local Washington Heights public schools. And this program started at this gentleman's 40th reunion, where he challenged me to find a program that took the values of the Beis Midrash and expressed them outside in the local community, which was not such an easy task. I happened to run into the chemistry department chair with a cart full of beakers one Friday morning on campus, maybe 15 years ago, and I said to her, Roger, where are you going? Oh, we're going to teach science in local public schools. I said, have I got a deal for you? So this family just came with their grandchildren to YU a couple weeks ago for the year-end celebration. This program has been going on for almost 15 years. They brought their granddaughter. And for the family, they've given now, significant sums of money to fund this program over the course of 10, 15 years. But it's become a very big part of their philanthropic journey. And really what it does is it hits the nail on the head in three key areas, which for me are the most satisfying outcome when this happens as a fundraiser. It's when you meet a donor passion with an organizational need and the financial resources to make something happen that otherwise wouldn't. And I'll tell another quick story about how that same pattern replicated itself this year in something that's very mission-centric and related to Israel. I was going with one of our deans on a solicitation, and we planned to ask this family, a parent family, for $50,000. They agreed to the $50,000, and they basically said to us, what else have you got? We're interested in this certain area, and we have more capacity that we're interested. This doesn't happen very often, but very quickly the dean said, we have an Israel summer internship program. The funders for that program have sort of faded into the background, and the program is now in jeopardy. And this family was very interested in the sort of educational aspect of business that doesn't happen in the classroom. And very quickly they offered to give us an additional $50,000 to fund the Israel Summer Internship Program. So this was a big win. Our $50,000 solicitation ended up with $100,000. Fast forward 6 months, I'm now having lunch with this couple, with the dean, and they're asking us about the program, and we're saying to them that things are going well, but unfortunately we're only able to have 2/3 of the number of interns because of the funding situation. And they very quickly said, well, what's it going to cost in order to make the program whole? So we got back to them within 24 hours, another $28,000. The $50,000 solicitation turned into a $128,000 gift. And again, those three elements are there. The donor passion for education in Israel, the organizational need to send our students to Israel for these experiential learning opportunities, and the financial resources to make something happen. And everybody's happy.
Congratulations. That is an incredible story. It's always nice to hear those success stories, because I feel like for every one success story, there's stories where you make a gift request and they need more time, or it's a prolonged deliberation, or sometimes the gift does not come in at the level that you like. But that's really wonderful to hear that they were that inspired that they asked, what else can we do? But I want to point out that you and your colleague were prepared with the answer to that question, because the worst thing that can happen is a donor says, what else do you need? And you're like, let me get back to you. So I think it was really great that not only were you prepared to navigate that conversation, but you were prepared with other priorities should they come up. So really great point to make, and congrats again.
Okay, so now to the challenging stuff, missed opportunities. But really I want to say one thing is missed opportunities are not the exception, they are the norm. So I'll say that again because I think it's really important. Missed opportunities are not the exception, they are the norm. I'll actually equate it to something that's close to home. It's childbirth. We could all look at, the birth of a child. We look around and we see children growing, thriving, building, et cetera. And we almost assume that the norm in childbirth is that children are born healthy. They all go according to plan. But reality shows that it is quite different. And although that's what we see externally, really what happens is the majority of births are not so smooth. And so I'll take that and kind of throw it back into the nonprofit world and see it as an opportunity of a rebirth. When we have missed opportunities, it is our opportunity to grasp them, assess them, learn from them, and see how we pivot and make it an opportunity for us and others surrounding us. So it is our opportunity to look and understand and assess the return on investment that could be taken away from something that we experienced. There are missed opportunities which are out there. We can't reach them. They're not, accessible. We could say those are types of missed opportunities, or others that are based on our own personal engagements and experiences. So I'll share a little bit, possibly two, but let's start with one, of an experience that we had as a classic fundraiser. We go in pretty prepared with, our pitch, what we're looking for, the goal, what this individual could properly give. And in this case, we actually went into a high-level individual who worked within the finance sphere. And we went in actually thinking that this individual, the takeaway from this meeting would be that hopefully we could engage with them and walk away with an individual who would open doors for us. Ideally one day to give, but really to open doors for us. And we knew going in, based on our research and our engagement with this individual, that if we went in with a high ask that we were very capable of doing, and this individual was definitely, on board with that as a whole, we would potentially lose this donor. Now, fast forward, we went in to this potential donor, had a wonderful meeting, started speaking, and really we're having a great time and in really creating a connection. What happened was this individual asked a few questions and caused us to make an ask. And unfortunately, in doing that, we missed an opportunity. We knew going in that this was the wrong move, but when we sat there, we felt otherwise, and we made this ask. And it is a lesson to us in trusting your research, that's an important part of fundraising as a whole. And for Migdal Or, when we went into this meeting, we felt when we left, we missed that opportunity, and we felt it from the potential donor. Fast forward, the way we looked at it was, one, trust your gut and your research, right? Learn from that. And don't push it aside based on an experience. You've done your research, you know what's going on. Learn from your surroundings, but also tap into what you knew going in. And number two, we tried to figure out how could we turn this into an experience that we could grow from personally, but also to re-engage that donor. And so it was a lot of investment in time, but down the road, it did turn into an opportunity for the organization. And this individual wasn't willing to give, but was indeed willing to eventually, and I'm talking about 3 years down the road, was eventually open to opening doors. I'll share one more small anecdote that's October 7th related. We saw a lot of, I'll call it emotive, passion-based giving October 7th. And that caused people to throw in the towel and give in a way they hadn't before. It wasn't necessarily a thought out, planned out, where can I have my impact as a family, as an individual. This was based on immediate emotion. And so individuals were stepping up and doing things that they weren't doing before, giving to causes they weren't giving to before, and possibly giving in the form of goods, giving in the forms of their hands-on, contributions, and of course financially. And we had a magnitude of an outpour of individuals who were throwing things at us. You're helping evacuees, you're helping orphans, I can give you goods, you can take it. And we did jump in, and we tried to lean into that experience as much as we could so that we could grow from it. But we also missed many of those opportunities which we knew could translate for the organization down the road. And knowing so, we kind of did that same assessment that I mentioned before, is to understand where exactly is the ROI for the organization. Is this an individual we want to grow with? Is this someone who down the road can help us? And to then jump in a way that can respond to those needs.
So I want to thank Charity for putting this topic on the table, missed opportunities. Let me take you back to the beginning of my career. Some of you might have been at fundraising day on Friday. or you've gone to other conferences. Those of you who are at the beginnings of your career come to these conferences, and I thought I would get $5,000. I walked out with 50. And Alan, that was a great story. That was a great story. It doesn't usually happen that way. And I also came back to my office after my first few conferences saying, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? It sounds, you only hear the successful stories. So this is very good that we're talking about these. In my first stay at YU, I was privileged to spend a lot of time with Dr. Norman Lamzatzal, and I couldn't believe that anyone could ever say no to him. And he was just such a wonderful person. And he said, yes, they do. And he gave me the baseball analogy. He said, if you hit 300 in baseball, you're a champion. You can be even on the all-star team. But that means that there were 7 outs. And he said, you have to be willing to get up there 10 times. I maintain that we get better as we repeat the solicitation to the next person and the next person. And I always advise people who are starting a campaign, most fundraisers say, you know what, I got the big prospect. If I go and I get that gift, I'm done. Chances of your success are slim because you haven't refined your pitch. Practice your pitch on a lower risk donor. Every donor is important. But if you're thinking of raising $100,000 and you have other donors that are $10,000 or $5,000 prospects, practice on them. They don't have to know you're practicing. You'll watch the reactions. You'll see what you say wrong. And by the time you get to the $100,000, you have a better chance, no guarantees, you'll have a better chance of success. So you have to learn for yourself. So a couple of the stories I can mention, and let me talk especially about the smaller organizations. We had the prospect of a very big real estate donation, and one of our board members, who was an attorney in the right field, said, you know what, I'm going to do it for you pro bono. And we almost lost the gift. He was a well-meaning attorney. He got very busy. We were at the bottom of the list because he had to answer to his law firm, and it wasn't official pro bono work for the law firm, so he didn't have to prioritize it. We almost lost the gift. If you're working with a major opportunity for the smaller organization, that's not where you should be saving your money. You have to say, if I'm talking about $1 million or $2 million gift, and I need a legal document, and someone says, I'll do you a favor, it'll get done, that may not be the right judgment to make. So I want to advise that. In terms of the other opportunities, you have to walk in, as was said before by Atara, you have to walk in with an open mind. Once we went to see someone about a very edgy OHEL program, and we did our research, and this person had a family member involved and everything like that, and we put all our cards on the table first, and then he said something really that I wouldn't want to repeat about his opinion about that population. End of solicitation. So we basically committed ourselves. You never do that. And so we tried to learn from that, and we went to see another big prospect, and in my bag were 2 proposals, one for X and one for 4X. And I had to remember to put my bag the right way because I didn't know what I would take out. And it turns out that when we walked in the office and we saw what was on the wall and what we saw when we started talking, he would not be interested in either one of those. Neither proposal came out, and we ended up getting a huge gift from that person. So on the one hand, you have to plan for success. I always say you never know. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to have that opportunity. I had a client recently who was delivering pre-Purim gifts to the house. There was a very big prospect that he thought he'd never meet, but he was just going to deliver it himself. The prospect opens the door and says, my wife and I are going out for the theater. I have half an hour to kill. Come in and tell me what you want. The last thing he expected, but hopefully he planned for success. So on the one hand, you want to plan for success. On the other hand, expect disappointment.
Thank you all. I've appreciated these conversations. And again, such similar themes, the themes of flexibility, preparation, really knowing your audience, and also being able to pivot based on the feedback that you hear in those conversations, based on what you learn in real time, or based on someone saying, hey, come on in, and you're like, I'm just dropping off a Purim gift. But I think it's really important, and it goes back to this concept of knowing your donor audience. What is it about your work that resonates with them? What is it about the impact of philanthropy on your community that inspires them to give? And how can you position your gift requests in a way that make your donors feel like they're a part of your organization and advancing the change that you are seeking to drive? So really important conversations. I appreciate the success stories. I appreciate the lessons learned. I always think personally the greatest growth opportunities come from really challenging moments where in the moment it's tough, perhaps it's not the outcome that you wanted, it's disappointing, it's frustrating, and yet 6, 12 plus months down the line when you're kind of out from the woods, you can look back and say, wow, I really did learn, or I grew, or I learned a new skill, or I secured a gift that perhaps wasn't what I wanted, but maybe it led to a different or new or more robust relationship in the longer term. So we started this conversation, at a pretty high level, thinking about the philanthropic landscape. We talked about boards and donor engagement strategies. I want to come back up and look ahead to the future. There's so much opportunity in philanthropy, and the question is, to the focus of this panel, how do we optimize that opportunity? How do we engage our donors in a way that gets them excited, that positions them to prioritize you and your organizations? So I'd love to hear from all of our panelists. Maybe we'll start with you, Richard, and work our way down. As you look to the future, and let's just say short-term future, maybe 6-12 months, what do you foresee as the greatest opportunities for philanthropy, and what advice would you give to the folks joining us here today?
I'm hopefully going to make it very simple, in that vision versus mission dollars. Organizations have to raise their budget. I call those mission dollars. You have to get that money in. But if you're looking to engage new people, you need to give them the idea that you're going to help us with vision dollars. Those vision dollars can be within your program. It can be a tweak. It can be an expansion. You don't have to start a new division and build a new residence or wherever, or take in 4 more classes if you're in a day school. It just means you have to make that new donor feel that they're getting you somewhere where you weren't before. Vision dollar versus mission dollar. When you solicit a vision dollar, your odds for success are much higher than when you solicit a mission dollar.
I would focus a little bit, in addition to what Richard just said, because I think that is what really drives giving long term. I really firmly believe, and this relates a little bit to what charity does, is community building. It's something that we as an organization have always focused on, and I think going forward, especially this year, is really building pockets of community that feel a personal connection, not only on the individual level, but as a group of individuals that are engaged together around a cause. So yeah, it relates to vision, and it taps into that power, that strength that we have as a group and as an individual. And that can really be a further building block for us going forward. It's something that we discovered in, we will win it together. We're Am Yisrael, we are one. And the more we can focus on that and really bringing in the individualized ideas and vision together to work together as a team and as a group, I think we'll see really positive growth going forward in the coming years. And it's something that I really would like to harness right now.
Okay. I feel as though I need to make a disclaimer. The success story I told you was like literally the highlight of my fundraising year. I've had so many failures. There's really nothing to talk about, just people saying no or dodging you or what have you, you need to have a lot of grit. I will say that over the course of my career, I've gotten better at not taking it personally, and I've gotten better at using my time wisely. I think when I was a lot younger, I used to spend a lot of time and energy on doing things that had no hope in hell of bringing in any money. I just didn't really see it. And I've gotten older, I've realized, where there's an ROI. I think that was the phrase that Atara used. Fundraising is a messy business. I love the childbirth analogy. We've had 2 unplanned home births. And I know a lot of people that had 1 unplanned. I don't know anyone else that had 2 unplanned home births. And I think that's a good, segue into it is a messy business. We have to just stay with it. And, in the end, they were healthy. There was just a lot of mess to clean up. So Yeshiva University's fiscal year end is June the 30th. And like Richard said, we're really focused on the mission dollars right now. We have incurred an extra $10 million of mission-related expenses as a result of October 7th. That's a big number. That money is for security, to make sure that your kids and grandkids feel safe on our campuses. The money's for housing. We're experiencing record-breaking enrollment. We had to lease a new building in Midtown to house the undergraduate women. Scholarships. No undergraduate university makes money on their undergraduate program. We offer 2 degrees for the price of 1, and that is very expensive. Mental health. We take the mental health of our students very seriously. We have an excellent counseling center, and that has seen unprecedented demand in the last 8 months. So short term, we're focused on making our budget between now and June 30th. Looking ahead over the next 6 to 8 months, yesterday we had our Chag HaSmicha. YU awarded smicha, rabbinic ordination, to 150 young men. I think it's really important to really underline the fact that regardless of what's happening in this country and abroad with regards to the larger environment, that we have an important mission to educate people and to train future leaders. And our smicha program is an important part of that. As I mentioned, we're experiencing record undergraduate enrollment, and someone's got to pay for that. We're opening a nursing program, a post-baccalaureate nursing program, starting a new undergraduate program in Israel in partnership with Bieler University and Tel Aviv University. So I would say that our focus is both mission and vision, in the sense that we're expanding our mission to incorporate a broader vision, and that's keeping the development staff very busy figuring out how to pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to put you all on the spot. Just a quick rapid-fire question to leave everyone off. If you had to pick one word to describe your outlook on the philanthropic landscape and fundraising today, what would that word be? Richard's like, I'm not going first. Atara, just one word.
Connection.
Connection.
Buoyant.
Buoyant.
Heroes.
Heroes. And mine is potential. And I would love for everyone to leave feeling like you have a renewed sense of philanthropic potential for your organization. I hope there was one, maybe 2 or 3 things, insights, anecdotes, things that you learned today that you can really take back to your work and your teams to help elevate your fundraising program. Maybe it's sharpening the way in which you're making your pitch or your case for support. Perhaps it's revitalizing your board and getting them more engaged in fundraising in ways that work for them. And then thinking, maybe more strategically about how you're engaging your donor audiences, both your major donors and your larger participatory donors. But ultimately, there's so much potential in the philanthropic landscape, and we're really grateful that you joined us for this conversation today around Operate, for the theme of the DotOrg conference, operating on a higher potential and on a higher level. And we wish you all the best and the greatest success as you do that over the next few months and years ahead.